Hi everybody, I'm Joe.
And I'm Mary.
And we're Book Buds!
Today we're doing a winter wrap-up of some books that we haven't mentioned in our other videos. So we've read a ton, but we've neglected to talk about some on our channel. So we're just going to take today to talk about some books that we've read.
All right, you ready?
Yeah.
All right, so the first one I got is Linden Falls by Joshua Hershey. Now this was a really cool book. It was a fantasy book. And it's about this girl whose parents died and she's living and being raised by her grandmother, okay? And she kind of has visions and dreams of that she's a witch.
I read this. You're talking to me like you don't know Mary. Yes, she does.
I forgot that you passed this to me.
I did.
There's so many books out here. Is that why you're smirking?
Yes.
Okay. So, okay.
Yes, continue.
So, when her grandmother dies and leaves her all alone, she's going through this. She finds this book, right, Mary?
Yes.
And the book has a lot of power, and she's spellbound. So it turns out I don't want to give too much away, but it turns out that the author of that book chose her to stop the darkness across the land. And then there's two worlds, and it gets into really awesome, cool stuff. So this is a really cool book, and what's even cooler is that the author sent us this to review on our channel. Thanks, Joshua.
Thanks so much. And I have one that was sent to me by an author to review. It's an ebook. So I read The Fey Ingredient by Jason Bustard. Thank you, Jason. Okay, so this was a middle grade fantasy, and it had a bunch of different Fey characters, and there was a lot of world building. There was this cute little thing named Amandine, and she worked in the kitchen. She was cleaning pots and stuff like that. She was an orphan, and she had run away, and she was hiding out at this noble person's house. And it starts out she's inside the cauldron, scrubbing the cauldron and everything. Very kitchen based. She wants to be a chef, but she's just, told to go clean up the glasses and stuff like that. So the chef is a real cranky guy, and he's got a secret pantry that I picture kind of like Snape's ingredient closet, you know, you can't go in there. So he's got special ingredients in there. He makes the most divine food, and Mandy wants to be a chef herself, so she's studying what he's doing. She's always trying to watch, and he yells at her to get back to work. But along comes this guy one day who's got a power to just disappear, and he has gone into the pantry and found a special ingredient that she's oh my god, let me see what this is. So they're exploring that, and they go off kind of on an adventure, seeking things about these ingredients, but then also an adventure into their world. So as they set out to explore this ingredient, they find that it might be linked to some dark fae and things like that. So it's a nice low stress, low key fantasy read for middle grade.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Next book for you?
We're getting our fantasy on.
We are.
Okay, so the next book that I read was called Day by Michael Cunningham. Now, he's the author who wrote The Hours, which I really want to read because I heard it is amazing. And Day was recommended by Steve, my friend Steve. Thank you, Steve. I just said Steve 4 times.
Thanks,
Steve.
Steve.
So this was a literary fiction novel, and it was pretty cool because it was about a family, a married couple, her gay brother that lives with them, and their 2 kids. So this is made up into 3 parts, and the first part is one day in 2019, and then the second part is one day in 2020, and then 2021.
Oh, okay.
So you really see their movement through the pandemic and what goes on.
And it's just one day glimpses?
One day in each, yeah. And it's really interesting. It's all about character development, and you really get to know these characters, and it's kind of interesting because the married couple is having some trouble, and it points out in the book that the real relationship in the household is between the husband and the gay brother, not a sexual relationship, but they raise the kids together, and they have a loving relationship because they've known each other forever. And I thought that dynamic was very interesting.
Yeah, well, sometimes it's easier to have that relationship than the one that's the close bond relationship that has all the conflict in it, you know?
Yeah.
Friendships are much easier.
Book Buds! So yeah, it was a good book.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. My next one, I think I'm going to do Destroy the Day by Bridget Kemmerer.
Okay,
so,
you like her.
I love her. And I've read every single one of her books. So this was the 3rd in the series, Defy the Night. Okay. So I was really excited for it and waiting for it. I think I didn't realize it was out. So I was 3 weeks later, and I was oh my God, I got to read it. So I love it. The best thing about Bridget Kemmerer is her character descriptions. You just fall in love with her characters. So I don't want to say too much to spoil like the first and second book, but the plot that's happening here, you have like your main male character is the prince, Prince Korik. And when we did our scene, we'll link the original video for you guys. When we did our scene, we were wearing masks and we were like doing the moon petal medicine to distribute to the town folk and whatever.
Yes.
And you were like, mind your metal, that scene.
Yes, I remember.
Okay, in that book, he was known as Wes, and she didn't know he was a prince. Okay, so we get to the point where obviously we know now he's a prince, and they're in a relationship. Second book, they go on a boat. He gets lost at sea, and she thinks he's dead. Okay, so we start the third book with him separate from Tessa. He's like floated away to one part of some country, and she's landed on some other place, and neither one of them are home. So Prince Korik's brother is the king, and he's left at the original location. They don't know, but he's been dethroned, and like people have come in and taken over the castle, and he's now living out in the wilds amongst the people who in the past have tried to kill them.
Ooh.
Okay, so there's a lot of tension happening in this third book. Prince Korik, since he fell in the water and is like popped up on shore, he's taken prisoner by some guy, and he's trying to be like manipulating the whole situation to get himself back to Tessa or back to any type of land that's not that land.
Okay.
And Tessa's on a different part with her bodyguard type person, and they have their storyline going. But my favorite storyline was the king who was left ruling the kingdom. He's very sickly, and he's falling in love with his advisor. And their relationship is very secret because the king has never been open that he's gay. He's never like had any relationships in front of anyone. But they're developing their relationship while like hiding out in this little house in the woods and whatnot. It was really cute. I loved it. I loved everything about this book, and I couldn't wait to get back to each of the characters as you moved on to a different chapter. You know?
Yeah.
And it wrapped everything up nicely. So I definitely recommend the series.
Oh, that sounds great.
Yeah, loved it. Next for you.
All right. So I read the entire Verania series by T.J. Klune. There were 5 books in total.
They're so fun.
They're so fun. I don't know if it exists already, but I'm gonna name a new genre that it's comical fantasy or
great.
Comedic fantasy.
There's probably not too many books in that genre.
Right, because this is a true fantasy, but man, T.J. Klune is just hilarious.
It's completely comical.
It is out of this world, wild, bonkers. I listened to it, and you've never heard anything like this before. Like, I really recommend the audiobooks because the narrator is Michael Leslie, and he just does a fantastic job. It's like a whole experience. He does different accents, different voices, and there's sound effects too, which is pretty cool. So I read all 5 of those, or I listened to all 5, and I really like the way T.J. Klune does his series. He does this in other series that he has. Like, he'll switch the perspective. Like, the first 2 books in this series was like from one person's perspective, and then all of a sudden in book 3 you're switching to somebody else within that crew. They're still all there, and they're all have a big part. It's just like the star of that novel is now this one, which happens in other books.
Because I only read 1 and 2 so far, and it was the same main person. And I said to you that like the second book felt a lot like the first book to me, so I took a break so that I wouldn't feel that way when I hit the book 3. I didn't want to, because they're funny. I wanted to like enjoy them, so I took that little break. But that's great. I didn't know that he switched narrators. That's good.
Yeah, he switches narrators. And even within those 5 books, there's like a novella. It's a pretty long one, though. It's Fairy Tales from Verania. So I thought it was going to be Fairy Tales from Verania. Like,
like stories they told
in history.
Yeah.
There was only one, which was my favorite, which was amazing and like tied into the story. But like the other 2 or 3 were like retellings of like famous fairy tales, which was hysterical. I think you got Rapunzel, Cinderella. It's with all them as characters.
Yeah,
it's very funny.
Okay, so just to be very clear, like his comedy is like sexually inappropriate comedy.
Could be. Yep.
So like you have unicorns having sex with dragons and things like that, and exclaiming loudly throughout the process and whatnot. So just so you know what kind of comedy we're talking about. It's so funny. So hilarious.
It's so hilarious.
Yes. Cool.
One of my favorite ones from TJ so far.
I'm so glad you finished the whole series. That's awesome.
Yes, me too, for reasons that I'll explain in a few minutes.
You're not good at that. All right, next I'm going to talk about the Amulet series. So I had not ever read any of the Amulet series, and it was my kids, my daughter in particular, liked book 1 through 8, and we were waiting for 9 for like 5 years to come out. And the author had bacterial meningitis or something, and like we weren't sure if 9 was ever going to be written, and 9 just came out. So since I anticipated 9 coming, and my daughter then made my son read all the books, I was like, okay, mom has to read all of the books.
Yeah.
So Amulet is it's a graphic novel series. It's about Emily, who finds like an amulet in, I think, her great-grandfather's house, and she puts it on. She becomes a stone keeper, and the amulet has powers and it's special, but there's very few stone keepers left, and it kind of like opens the world. She's no longer in like the human world, she's in like another world, and there's not very many stone keepers left that like keep the peace and defend and all of that, and she has to battle the Elf King, who's the main bad guy. And people, they have like a curse on them. A lot of the people have started turning into animals, so they might look like a fox or a whatever, but it's actually a person in there under this curse. So each book of Amulet, they're doing little segments of the adventure, and then book 9 finally came out. Yay for all the Amulet fans. My daughter was a little tearful when she finished it. She was like, it's done,
Yeah.
It wrapped it up nicely. It's the 9 was much thicker than the other books, so it's a little bit more of a hefty read, like still the same reading level, just longer. But both my kids loved the wrap up, and it was done well.
How long did it take you to read like one of them?
The earlier books took me maybe like 45 minutes to read.
That's good.
But then the last one I had to break up over a couple days.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I like those graphic novels you could just do in a sitting.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Okay, so next for me, I continued along my TJ Klune journey, and I had some outstanding series I needed to finish. So I finished Brother Song, which is part of his like gay werewolf series, and then I finished Heat Wave, which is part of his Extraordinaries trilogy.
And they're like superhero teenagers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Brother Song, I listened to that one. I listened to both of them. So Brother Song, unfortunately, there was like an 8-month gap in between my last book of the series and this final book.
Well,
which
why did that happen,
is
Joe?
a big no-no. It's a big no-no because I love this series. This was like my jam. I freaking loved it. And speaking of TJ Klune, what I said earlier, in this series, every single book was from a different perspective, which was cool.
Different member of the pack.
I was too far removed from the story. I read, okay, so for both of these books that I'm talking about, I read the others, and then I listened to the last one because I love listening to his books, and I think that kind of contributed to it because listening is new for me. And when you're reading, you kind of put your own things in there, you picture them the way that you want. The voices threw me off. I really didn't expect certain ones to sound this way and deliver the lines in that sort of a way. So that was one little aspect that kind of threw me off.
That must have been weird.
And I was texting, it was weird. It was a little jarring. I won't do that again. I'm either going to listen to them all or read them all or whatever. I was texting you about Brother Song, and I was disappointed.
He's like, I thought it's about the brothers.
It's not about the brothers.
Each one is about a romance
for
that particular character. And they're all basically brothers. But, like, I don't know, he needed another something song. And they were like, love song and heart song and wolf song. So, throw in brother.
Because this particular wolf was like, I don't know what the correct terminology is. I can't remember. Tethered to his brother. It was like they helped each other out and they were like, really strong. But then he also had like a romantic interest.
And that romantic interest was the brother of someone else.
Another one.
So, but Joe was expecting it to be like about a brother's relationship, but it wasn't.
It wasn't.
He was like, when's that going to happen, Mary? I'm like, no.
Yeah. I wasn't disappointed with the ending. The ending was great. It kind of wrapped it all up nicely. It got a little bit more emotionally involved for me. The beginning was all about, okay, so one guy goes away from the pack, and when he returns, there's so many chapters of everybody giving him shit for leaving. I'm like, oh, what are we doing? Like, this is so annoying.
Are you sure you didn't like accidentally hit replay or something?
Nope, we get it. He left. You shouldn't have left. You're mad. Oh my God, it was over and over again. It was like those like teenage books that I can't stand.
I don't know. I remember enjoying it equally, so.
Maybe I would have if I kept it soon enough. But anyway, and then Heat Wave I read. I thought it was a weak ending to the trilogy. I really didn't love it.
Damn it. You
Yeah.
didn't tell me anything about this after, like, you told me you were starting it, and
Yeah.
I didn't know that you finished it.
Yeah, I was very surprised. I was like wanting it to be over. I'm like, how am I feeling this way about a
Okay,
TJ Klune book?
so I have something to say about this. So the Extraordinaries series is also very funny. So not
Yeah.
all of TJ Klune's books have that humor in it, like a little bit, but Extraordinaries, it has a lot of it. But then the Verania ones is like 110%. It's like
Craziness.
overboard, okay?
Yeah.
So you went from reading those to then reading this Extraordinary book, and I think that was the wrong order because it was like it stepped the humor way back down, where like when we were reading it initially we were kind of like, oh, that's funny.
Yeah,
oh,
yeah,
that's funny.
Yeah.
You know, so you missed that because you were oversaturated with the comedy from the other one, you know?
Could be. There's
I
a
think
lot of
that's what
factors here.
happened. I enjoyed the Extraordinary series completely,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah, it was
sorry,
my
man.
least favorite. I didn't hate the trilogy, but like out of TJ Klune's books, like that's like my least
No,
favorite.
I feel very fondly about them.
That's
So
one of
funny.
your favorite books?
I love them
Series?
all, but like I really love
No,
the
you
characters.
can't. We all love them all.
Do I have to pick a favorite?
Well, no, I'm
make
saying
me.
I'm just saying it's not my favorite.
Yeah.
Like by far.
I just feel like they're all up there on the same shelf for me. I can't,
That's
I
a
can't
merry
do that.
response.
But because I love the characters, they're just hilarious. They're so individual and everything. And
Yeah.
all right, whatever. You're entitled to your different experience.
And we have them.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, it's my turn now.
It's your turn.
Okay, so I read The Colossus Rises by Peter. How do you say that? Larangis.
I can't even read your handwriting. Sure.
Okay.
Lorangus?
So this is also a middle grade book. I read this because my son was reading it for a school assignment and had like a big illustrated page assignment that he had to do. And like, you know, when kids are doing an assignment like that, they panic like, Mom, I don't know what to put for this section. So I read it so that I could like be like, well, let's talk about themes or whatever.
Right. Help them along a little
Yes. So this is part of the Seven Wonders series. There's 5 books and there's a couple novellas, and it's based on Greek mythology and it incorporates the 7 wonders of the ancient world. And it's very similar to kind of like a Percy Jackson vibe. So if you like Percy Jackson, you probably, if you're looking for another series, you probably would enjoy this series. The main character is Jack, and he has like some kind of genetic like disease or something that he didn't realize that's going to kill him, and there's a couple of other kids in the world that also have this, and so they end up going to this place that helps keep them alive while they have to search for these like I think they're orbs at the different wonders of the world. Let me see, are they orbs? Yes, there's 7 lost magical orbs, and so
Ooh.
they have to go and search for them, and I think each one is at a different place, you know, they don't get them all in the first book kind of thing.
Yeah.
And some of the parts, I have to say, for this being middle grade, are like really gross.
Really?
Like somebody dies,
Like graphic?
and it's just disgusting. So I read that before my son, and I was like, honey, you're gonna come up with something gross? Like, just get through it.
Really?
Yeah. So, and afterwards, I'm like, was that okay for you? He's like, yeah, it was fine.
He's a little boy. He's
As
like,
a parent, I was like, oh, that's brutal.
do you remember what it was?
Yeah, they were like I don't know, if I feel like the body was like hacked up and disintegrated or something like that when somebody died. It was just a really disgusting death.
Yeah. Oh, God.
But so that's all I want to say about that. If you like Percy Jackson, consider checking it out if you want something like that.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, so I got a thriller next. Okay, The Teacher by Frida McFadden. This is the one that I was dying to talk to you about.
Yes.
And now I can't tell you everything because we can't do spoilers on here.
I know.
So I will just tell you a little bit. But first I want to say, you know, The Housemaid is getting all this attention. That's her other book that was like super popular.
Yeah.
And I've read several of her books, and like, that's not the best one.
I mean, you like them all, though. You like The
I
Housemaid.
liked them.
Yeah.
I liked it much. But I liked it much. But the other books are so much better than The Housemaid. So I think that you should start with other books rather than The Housemaid. Because I've heard some people be like, it was all right. Because when something gets such a big hype about it and everybody's talking about it, it could kind of like fall flat.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
The Teacher.
The Teacher. This one's coming up next. Okay, The Teacher. Spoiler-free comments. What could I say? Okay, ready?
Yes. Uh-huh.
We got a couple. They both teach in a high school, the same high school. That's how they met. One teaches math, one teaches English. You have a student who last year got this other teacher fired for like inappropriate behavior.
Okay.
So she's like, everybody's nervous
Scared
about
of
this
her.
kid, right?
Yeah.
Is she really the problem? So now this year, that kid is in both of their classes.
Oh.
Okay, so there's the tension is high.
Yeah.
She loves English, so she's really connecting with the man who's like the hottest teacher in the school and everybody wants to bang him.
Uh-huh.
And she does not get along with the woman because she's the math teacher and she does not excel at math. So there's like that conflict. And so much stuff happens. I was screaming at the end. If you read this book and you're like invested in the characters and like it's going well for you and you're not screaming at the last page, I was like, what? I wish you would read this. I want to hear you screaming. It was crazy.
I can step out of my comfort zone from time to
So
time.
shocked. I was shocked.
Okay.
So there was a lot of twists, but like the last twist, I was like, what?
Okay, so in order for me to read it, were kids dying? I mean, like in Hunger Games, that's fine with me, but in real life stories, I'm not okay with that. Were kids dying in this book? Anybody abducted? Like kids abducted? I might be able to read it. See, real life things, like there's limits that I have. But if it's fantasy and they were, killed and abducted, who cares?
That's right.
I don't understand why I'm like this, guys.
Why you like this?
I don't know.
All right, well, what's next?
Are you ready for my next book? Let's see what I'm going to do next. Let's do Wilder. So I was on this Rebecca Yarros kick, and I didn't get to finish this one when I did my Rebecca Yarros video. So it's part of the Renegades series, and the Renegades is this group of like competitive sports enthusiast people that do stunts for like YouTube videos. Okay. So they'll do like absolutely outrageous things,
Parkour.
Like totally parkour. And they're also very wealthy because of doing all of this. So they are going on this cruise, and at each stop they're going to do some stunt, and they're also coupling it with their millionaire dad is like funding it, but you have to keep your grades up. So they're making it like a college abroad time on a cruise ship for 9 months, and they hire a tutor for him to go on this cruise ship and keep him like focused on his studies.
Wow.
So she's very serious, very responsible, not a risk taker, okay? And he is like fearless and crazy. So they're of course the love interest, the couple there that happens in the book. And I loved it. There was, I mean, even in this romance thing that sounds like a cheesy kind of kids storyline and whatnot, there was a twist towards the end and whatnot to keep it exciting. I enjoyed it. I enjoy Rebecca Yarros's
You like her.
steamy bits.
Steamy bits. How many times was it in this book?
I don't remember because I stopped counting. It was too much of a chore to count when I was preparing for that video. So now I'm just reading without the duty of counting.
But it appeared.
It was in there, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because
Cool.
they did have, romantic time together.
Now I would be very disappointed if her book did not have that word in it.
It would have that word.
Good.
If you're wondering what we're talking about, check out our Rebecca Yarros video from before. For adults only. Okay.
Yes.
What else you got?
All right, so I have another Frida McFadden,
Yes.
and this is The Locked Door by Frida McFadden. And this one I buddy read with Mason from Mason in the Dark, and we had a good time with it.
Nice.
Again, liked it better than The Housemaid. So this one is about this girl. Well, now she's a woman. Back in the day, her father was a serial killer.
Okay. Ooh.
And he's in jail now. He was like keeping girls in their basement and like doing terrible things to them and then killing them.
Okay.
And did the mother know? Did the little girl know? What happened there? So there's that storyline.
That's really creepy.
And
I
then-
don't want to read that one.
And then when she grows up, right, they were abducted into his basement.
Yes. No, thank you.
When she grows up, some murders are occurring with the same MO as her father's murders. So, like, what's going on? Is she copycatting her father? Is her father out of jail? Who is doing this to her? And they're kind of, like, trying to pin it on her.
Oh, God. Maybe she did do it.
Maybe she did. You never know with Frida McFadden.
Jeez. Creepy.
Let's go. 5 stars.
Creepy, creepy.
I'm done.
You're done?
I'm done.
All right, well, I have 2 more. Okay, I'll make them quick. So, one I read was The Lost Hero, and this is from the Percy Jackson realm. But so if you've read the first 5 of Percy Jackson, then there's like the next series. This is the first book of the next series, and my daughter has been wanting me to read on. So I read this one, and it doesn't have Percy in it at all. So like, you know, it might be like weird to some people if you don't know this about Percy Jackson. So
is it before his timeline or after?
It's after. So they mention him and they say, oh, there's this dude Percy that people keep talking about, and he's missing. Like,
really?
Whatever. And these characters are Jason, Piper, and Leo. Jason and Piper are an item. Leo is a friend. And Jason shows up and he like has amnesia, doesn't know what's going on, and they're all demigods. He doesn't even know that he's a demigod, and they end up, you know, going back to Camp Half-Blood, and like he's learning about all this demigod stuff, but like he doesn't know who he is. It's very strange. So they end up having to go off on their own adventure as he's trying to figure out who he is and like why he had this amnesia. And then each of the characters, whenever they go off on these adventures, I feel like they are plagued by different gods that are making them lie to each other. So like, for example, the girl, her father's been abducted, and she's told, don't tell anybody, you have to come and say, like, to save him you got to betray your friends and let me kill your friends so that you can save your dad, don't tell anybody. And like she gets visited during like her dreams and whatnot, and she's just like so anxious, right? Guys, the message that I want out here is like, if you are threatened by someone, stranger danger, whatever, and they think that like you shouldn't tell anybody, just tell somebody, because like, come on, she's got to tell her friends, you know she does, and then everything's okay.
Right. It's
right?
gotta get out there.
Right. They solve it another way. So don't be afraid to tell people if there's something bad going down. So
that's our PSA for the day.
Yes, but that's kind of a little gist of what you can get in that next book. All right, and
are
then
you going to continue that series, Mary?
Slowly, but like, okay. I'm not going to deep dive
it's not
in.
Priority.
Yeah.
All
right. Something I did really deep dive in. I didn't expect to like tear through them. The Selection series, I had noticed this book a while back when we were looking at like pretty covers. Yes.
The dresses, yes.
So I finally was like, just randomly let me read that book. I loved it. And I recently was telling a group of people, like, a Mary style book is like, you know, there's a king and he has to find somebody to marry, and like, you know, everybody comes and he has to pick. And I'm like,
good Lord.
What do I sound like? But this is what I like reading.
All right.
I loved it.
This is what you like.
So
you like what you like. You can't change it.
So Prince Maxon, he's picking from 35 girls from all over his, you know, all the different districts. You know, the world's kind of like crumbling, and they all have these different levels of employment. And if you're a level 8, you're kind of like a cleaner, and you're not allowed to marry above or below your station. You know, but if you go in the selection, you can marry a 1, which is the royalty, right? So it's 3 books that are like kind of like the main trilogy, and it's working through the selection of the 35, but mixed in with all the cutesy romance stuff that I like. There's also rebels that are attacking the kingdom. There's political strife going on. The king is a nasty bastard and really mistreats his son. So there's a lot of interesting dynamics going on, tension and stuff like that. So it's not all just, you know, like Prince picking his wife, okay? So that's the first 3 books. Then the final 2 books are their child, okay, who has grown up, and they have thrown out the selection. They don't want to force this on anybody, and they're allowing like women to be the ruler instead of the man to be the ruler. So they're changing a lot in the community. But there's a lot of bad stuff happening that politically, like there's a lot of just people are not happy, okay? And they're like, how do we distract people and make them happy again? Let's have a selection, honey. Do you mind if we do a selection for you? So it's 2 books of her having a selection, but also learning a lot more about the community and why people are so unhappy. But they're trying to bring more balance and equality to the world that they're in. So I enjoyed all 5, but I loved 1 through 3.
1 through 3.
Yeah, and I read all the novellas after 1 through 3. I was like all in, and I slowed down, and then I read 4 and 5. So this author only has 3 other books, so I'm gonna read her 3 other books so then I can be like, I've read everything of her. Did I say her name? What is it? Kiara Cass?
Kiara Cass?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I'm gonna finish her other books in my TBR coming up.
These are popular, those selection books.
Yeah. Well, the first 3 were amazing.
Yeah.
Really good.
We've had quite a winter.
Yeah, and this is in addition to all the other videos we put out there that you've seen, so yeah.
Not too shabby.
Fun reading, guys.
All right, well, if you're enjoying Book Buds, give us a thumbs up.
And share us with your friends.
And subscribe to our channel, Book Buds!
Be sure to subscribe subscribe.
Are you smiling? Are you posing? Oh. Winter. Brr.
Back to back.
You love that.
Rotate. Do you see what
I
I'm doing?
feel you. You're like getting all different spots
Like
of
a
your
different
face.
angles.
Yo, you're
Smile,
crazy.
Keep smiling and rotate.
Smile
Rotate your body.
and rotate. I know, but we're rotating opposite ways.
Turn. Go this way.
You crazy.
Gotta look good.
I can't believe I feel this. I'm like, is she trying to give me like a massage?
Does that feel good?
Yeah, it kind of
It
does.
does actually. Find a friend.
Right.
And do this.
Pressure massage.
Right through the shoulder blades.
Yeah. Feels good.
And it makes a
Blooper.
nice picture. All
Blooper
right.
goals.